Batman's Log, October 4th, 2008. It has been 3 hours since the meeting at Town Hall ended. Right now, I am preparing myself for an interrogation of a possible informant within the cult. First, I need to update the log on what has led me to this encounter, and my theory as to what is really going on in Silent Hill. Immediately after the meeting, I had gone around to the front of the building. I had traveled across the rooftop to not be seen. From there, I had used my glass cutter to open a section of the window on the upper level, something I learned from my first encounter with Catwoman. I carefully set the circle of glass aside and came in as silent as a ghost. I was between two large stacks of books beside a torn-down bookshelf. It was the only small blind spot, but there was a scarecrow directly in front of me, behind the books. It was looking forward, across the gap, and to the other side of the second floor. On the other side was another scarecrow, staring directly at the one in front of me. If I took either one down, the other would see. I had to figure out a way to destroy both simultaneously. Thinking fast, I took out 2 batarangs and placed one in each hand. I had to aim the trajectory carefully to hit correctly. I threw the batarang in my right hand with an arch. I relied on the instinctual timing rather than sight. As soon as I was sure that the moment came, I stabbed through the stack of books and tore through the head of the nearest scarecrow. At the same time, the other had its head sliced open. There were quick screams which came from each of them. I stayed still to listen for anybody who noticed, but there was nothing. The room was silent again. I took that as confirmation that while the scarecrows could see for Crane, they could not hear. The way was almost clear. There were just a couple more scarecrows stationed on the upper level. One watching across the way from the back end, and 2 more watching each other from each side, closer to the end. First, I'd have to take out the one watching from the end. I could barely take a peek around the corner to see it without being spotted, but I had plenty of experience making shots like this. I arced the batarangs high to make it even harder to see in the dark town hall. It hit the head, letting out a loud shriek. The way was clear for me to step out without alerting the remaining watchers. I was able to get a more clear look at the throne of books from there. Looking through my binoculars, I could see that it was almost entirely comprised of psychology textbooks and horror novels. Crane is as overly obsessive with his theme as ever. I needed to collect my batarang from before in order to destroy the remaining 2 dummies. Contrary to popular belief, they aren't an unlimited resource. I used my grappling hook to latch onto a beam connected to the railing on the other side and leapt off. dragging myself up before I could dip low enough to be seen by the scarecrows below. After pulling myself over the railing, I collected my batarang, used it, and one more from my belt to destroy the remaining 2 dummies. I went to collect all the others I had used on the upper level. It was when I collected my weapon from the very end that I heard a strange noise, like a strained chirping. Looking down at the sound, I saw my mistake. Behind Crane's throne was another scarecrow, laying face up and looking directly at me from below. The chirping grew louder and came from everywhere. Finally, I caught a glimpse at what was making the noise. Fluttering in the air was a malformed bird. The feathers on its belly were red. The crooked wings were yellow, and the rest was green. The head was naked, almost human-like, with leathery skin, blind eyes, and a bald scalp, with a long, pointed beak where the human mouth would be. There were 3 of them, moving back and forth chaotically in the air. One of them made another sound. "Like you," it called. "Like you." After calling out, the thing hurled itself at me with a frantic spin. I rolled out of the way in time and saw that its long beak had pierced all the way through the wall where I was standing. The remaining 2 followed me by sound. I leapt down to the lower floor for more cover as the beaks struck into the floor where I had stood. I tore through the remaining scarecrows on the lower level while they tried to get themselves unstuck. As I got the one behind Crane's throne, I had to throw it at one of the birds as it darted at me. The confused creature fluttered around in the burlap head, giving me the opening to grab it and beat the creature around. I normally don't engage in such brutality with animals, but these were clearly something else entirely. The other 2 floated around above me, using sound to locate my position. They both shot at me from different angles. As one passed me, I was able to grab onto it by the beak, but the other grazed my ribs, causing severe pain. I slammed the bird into a nearby support beam, taking it out. The remaining creature lunged at me. I was quick enough to catch it with both hands, but not before it was able to get its beak in a half-inch into my abdomen. It tried jittering around as I held it in place, increasing the size of the flesh wound, threatening to hit my liver. Finally, I was able to tear it off. It slipped from my grip and tried to circle back around, but I had enough. With a well-aimed shot, I fired my grappling hook and snatched it out of the air by the head. The hook zipped in at me with high speed, allowing me to land an extra hard hit on its body. After all that, it finally stopped moving. My adrenaline was beginning to wear off. The bleeding laceration above my liver was pulsing with pain. The door to Crane's lair was right there, but I couldn't face him with this kind of injury. Reluctantly, I made my way to the entrance door. The blood on my hands made the handle slippery, but I managed to force my way through. On the other side was the Wayne Manor courtyard. The door behind me disappeared. Ahead stood the obscured figure of Alfred. I was a child again, my wounds gone. "This way, sir," the Alfred called to me. "It's time for your next play date." I obeyed and walked along the stone pathway through the grass to meet him. I tried to get a clearer look at his face up close, but it still seemed bathed in shadow regardless of lighting. The full moon illuminated our way around the outer perimeter of the home until we came about an outdoor playhouse. I never had one, and yet it felt so familiar. Inside sat another boy at a table opposite of me, twirling a coin between his fingers. "One Mr. Harvey Dent, sir," the Alfred announced as he closed the door behind himself, leaving me alone with Harvey. "Bruce." Harvey's voice echoed through the room. "We're still friends, aren't we?" I was struck by the question, stuck within the mentality of my child self. "Of course. Heads or tails?" he demanded. "Heads or tails will tell me the truth. Heads means yes, and tails means no." I submitted to his terms. Heads. Harvey's coin went all the way to the ceiling and back down. Catching it in his right hand, he opened up his palm to reveal a heads up. I felt the tension ease just a bit before he brought it back. "Bruce Wayne." He spoke with an interrogative tone. "Were you, or were you not, the one who requested to go to the movies that night?" He wasn't specific, but I knew which night he was talking about, and answered. Heads. Yes. "Well, I suppose I don't need to flip for that," he went on. "Do you think it was your fault, what happened to them?" I felt tears begin to form in my eyes as I answered. "No. Tails." Harvey gave me an inquisitive look as he flipped his coin into the air to reveal a scratched head on the other side of a double-faced coin, which served as the tails. He seemed genuinely surprised by the result. He looked back at me, to the left side of his face seeming angry, while the right seemed sympathetic. "How?" he questioned. "How can you not feel responsible? They wouldn't have been there if not for you." "We were just going to the movies," I blurted out. That's a normal thing to do. Killing someone like that, that's not normal to expect. Crime happens, he added, especially in Gotham. You expect a 9-year-old to understand that more than his parents? I interrogated. Even then, no one expects to die every time they go out to the theater. I took a moment. He was muttering incomprehensibly to himself, as though he was having an inner discussion before ultimately answering. I suppose that makes sense. We'll allow it. If that's the case, then why do you do anything about it? If it's not your fault, then why take the responsibility? Because I thought hard about my answer. Because I made the mistake of thinking it was my fault. When I started, my motivations were guilt and vengeance. But not anymore, he continued. No, I answered. Then why go on? Harvey asked. Because someone had to, I answered. Because I was the most equipped to do so. Because I had to choose to. Humph. He shrugged as he held up his coin. We'll see. He sent the coin up into the air, caught it, and was angered by the result. A heads rested in his hand. The left side of his face turned red and furious. The right side was still normal, but also agitated. Let me ask you something, Bruce. The coin shook in his hand. Are you, or are you not, guilty for what happened to me? Tears in his flesh began to form over the left side of his body. The playroom itself became dilapidated and rotten around that side, while the other twisted into a more cold and gray adult room, shut off from feeling. I admittedly had conflicting feelings about how to answer. The truth, and what I suspected he wanted to hear. I grit my teeth and answered. I'm sorry that I wasn't there when it happened, Harv. He snarled. That doesn't answer my question. No, I finally shouted, stunning him. It wasn't my fault. You knew the risks, and you took them, same as me. Nobody expected Maroney to have that acid. Nobody except for him and the paid-off bailiff. If I had been there, maybe I could have done something. Maybe. But you went down your own path, on your own. And that's not my fault. It's Maroney's fault for the attack, but it's your fault for what you became. How dare you? Flames arose around him in the rotten half of the room, while frost formed on the other half. How can you say that? After all we've been through? I have half a mind. Just flip your coin, Harvey, I demanded. He was shocked for a moment, but ultimately gave in. He flipped, caught the coin, and paused for just a second, afraid of the answer. Slowly his fingers opened up to reveal a heads. He gripped his coin tight and held his head down, beginning to tear up. The flames and the ice grew. Do you still believe in Harvey Dent? He whispered. I do, he replied. I replied. We're still friends. His voice grew raspy. Right? You already flipped on that, I corrected him. He brought up his half-perfect, half-mangled face to stare me directly in the eyes as he asked, Then, will you stay with me? Solemnly I answered, I can't. There's too much for me to do, too many lives at stake. You understand this. You once had my same responsibilities. Harvey stood up and held out his hand, offering me his coin. Take it. It knows lies. I took the coin from his hand and was caught in a flash of fire and snow that enveloped my body. When I opened my eyes, I was at the Vale Manor again. I had been patched up by Lankstrom. He had informed me that I had been escorted there by some man obscured in the fog. This man told him I was to meet with a, quote, true believer by the lake to learn, quote, right from wrong. Now I am carefully stalking through the woods towards the lake, hoping not to be spotted. Harvey's coin was in my hand when I came to, but it obviously can't belong to the real Harvey Dent. I don't know how much of what I experienced was real, but there's clearly something supernatural about this town. Perhaps it will come in handy, but I'll have to update this log later. Batman out.